Seniors, episode 18, 27th of July, 2020. Welcome to Tech for Seniors. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Hewie Poplock. Hewie, say hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone.
And I'd like to introduce our security expert and co-host as well, Bob G. Say hello, Bob.
Good morning.
And our guest speaker today, who is Greg Farr, which, Greg, give a wave. You will be hearing Greg very shortly. So welcome, everybody, to our show today. It's going to be a great show. We have lots of material to cover, and so we should have a lot of fun. Hopefully everyone's week went well. Mine was stressful. We had an oops, and in the recording of this video, it only recorded last week the first 28 minutes. So my week was spent running around trying to create an episode 17. So please watch episode 17 because there was a lot of work that went into that. I had to make it all up, but Hewie helped me. So we got it all done by Friday. Normally these videos are taped and we have them out the next day. It's interesting, we have 68 people watching our show today. We probably have about 80 people that watch it on video. And so we actually record this show, as you well know, and we have pretty much every week we have about 80 people. A lot of people say, I can't make it Monday morning. We really want to watch the show. So they watch it and we tape it and record it for them. So that's pretty cool. And so we do that every week, and I should usually have that out on the Tuesday morning. So now we have multiple people recording this. I don't want another oops again, so we're working hard at that. Now, we had an excellent presentation last week by Ray Baxter, and we talked on, and I just wanted to remind everybody about how you can use Zoom to socialize. In these difficult times, one of the biggest problems I personally find with COVID-19 crisis is the social isolation. And one of the fun things I have is Hewie and I talk every day. I get to run this show, and I get to, Bob and I and we're always talking, and it keeps me, it prevents this social isolation. And what Ray talked about last week, and having a music club, you could have a sewing club, you could just have a group of people you haven't seen for a while, get together, watch a movie on whatever we do in this little group that we have in Zoom. We can do whatever we want. You could watch a baseball game together. It's hockey's coming on. You can even watch a hockey game together, right? So, I mean, you can move through this social isolation by using this technology to help us through these times. And I think that's important. And I think and we need to just keep that as an idea. Now, let me just do a mute all here. Now, part of what's going to happen is this week Hewie is going to be teaching a Zoom course. So if you don't feel comfortable with Zoom, or you don't feel like you completely feel confident in hosting a meeting or just having your friends together, you need to take Hewie's course. Hewie, do you want to talk about your course that's going to be on Thursday? You better unmute. I muted you again.
I guess that helps to have it unmuted. But everyone's invited to the class. It's free. The Zoom 101 class will cover the invite, how to join a meeting, what the functions of all the menu items are. You'll learn how to use the chat, raise your hand, and other nonverbal cues, how to switch between gallery and speaker view and what they are, start and stop your camera, how to use a virtual background. You'll also see how to use Zoom on an iPhone or iPad or an Android device. And then finally, I'm going to talk about some Zoom etiquette. I am going to put right now in the chat box a link for you to register. It is free. And let me make that so everyone can see it. It's a bit.ly address, but it says Zoom 101 class. If you have not registered, go to that address and go ahead and register. You'll immediately get back a link to the meeting, which is unique to you. Do not share it with anyone. And please join us. We've still got some room for you. And back to you.
Here is the Security News Roundup for the week ending July 24th, 2020. Smartwatch and wearables maker Garmin has shut down several of its services on July 23rd to deal with a ransomware attack that has encrypted its internal network and some production systems. In messages shared on its website and Twitter, Garmin said the same outage also impacted its call centers, leaving the company in the situation of being unable to answer calls, emails, and online chats sent by users. The incident did not go unnoticed and has caused lots of headaches for the company's customers, most of which rely on the Garmin Connect services to sync data about runs and bike rides to Garmin's servers, all of which went down on Thursday. In today's cybersecurity landscape, only ransomware attacks have the destructive power to cause companies to shut down production lines, online services, websites, email servers, and call centers in a matter of hours and enter into an impromptu maintenance mode. It also remains unclear if any customer data has been lost or stolen during this incident. Over the past several months, ransomware gangs have modified their modus operandi to also include data theft besides file encryption. Some so-called no-log VPNs exposed users' logs and personal details for all to see. This leads to blackmail, extortion, and doxing. VPN users rely on the privacy and anonymity a VPN provides for many reasons, but the most important benefit is keeping both your online activity and identity hidden and separate. A VPN should never connect a person's browsing to their identity in any way. However, these VPN apps did precisely that through their activity logs, and they exposed the details to the public. In doing so, they compromised the safety and security of their users. If malicious hackers had access to the VPN records, they could target users for blackmail and extortion, threatening to expose their private, potentially embarrassing activity to friends, family, colleagues, and in some cases their government and police agencies. Products affected were UFO VPN, Fast VPN, Free VPN, Super VPN, Flash VPN, Secure VPN, and Rabbit VPN. Choose your VPN carefully. HMA is a no-log VPN, but there really is no log. You can't exploit what doesn't exist. Applying community-building principles to improve data protection. Crime prevention through environmental design, or CEPTED, defines the premise that any community, whether a place of business, office building, or neighborhood, can be made safer and more secure by efficient planning and design. Applying CEPTED to computers. With a little imagination, applying these physical principles to the virtual world of computing is surprisingly simple. We can think of our computers as any physical property or environment, like a building. It has entrances and exits, contains valuables, has light areas and dark areas, and has the same opportunistic burglar threats as our home. Using CEPTED principles, we can make it an unattractive target for the casual hacker. More details on the Avast blog. DOJ charges Chinese hackers with targeting COVID-19 research centers. This week, the Department of Justice indicted 2 Chinese nationals on charges that they included the theft of American trade secrets and a recent targeting of COVID-19 research centers. The DOJ claims that the suspects acted sometimes for their own financial gain and other times to benefit the Chinese Ministry of State Security. Their hacking campaign lasted more than 10 years. Recent targets included companies developing COVID-19 vaccines, testing technology, and treatments. The indictment further claims, since the Chinese hackers are residents of China, it is unlikely that either man, both in their 30s, will actually face trial. Family Tree Maker exposed data of 60,000 users. Email addresses, IP addresses, location data, technical details, user ID, and support messages for 60,000 users were among the leaked details found in their database, the combination of which could serve multiple attacks. The user's personal data could be used to launch phishing campaigns. The technical support messages could be used by Family Tree Maker competitors to target unhappy customers, and the technical details could be used to leverage further cyber attacks on the system. The researchers informed Family Tree Maker of the problem, and the database was secured shortly thereafter. Avast is at least temporarily relocating its Hong Kong VPN servers. The Chinese government recently passed a security law that applies to the semi-autonomous city of Hong Kong. The law directly challenges users' privacy by permitting the Chinese government to request that companies turn over data from users the Chinese government deems a threat to its national security. This has been heavily criticized by privacy and human rights activists alike, as the data obtained by the government could be used as evidence against everyday people. In response to these events, Avast has temporarily moved the servers for our VPN business out of Hong Kong, and we now redirect our Hong Kong customers' traffics to nearby locations such as Taiwan and Singapore. This move affects Avast, AVG, and HMA VPN servers. And that's enough of the security news for this week. Hugs to all. See you next week.
All right. Well, this started out as a discussion with Ron, and we were talking about speed of his internet and speed of internet in general. And so I wanted to put something together, and I did. Let me minimize this and bring this up. The ups and downs of bandwidth. I'm Hewie Poplock. Measuring bandwidth. Bandwidth is measured by megabits and megabytes. And there's 8 bits to a byte. So you need to make sure that if you're measuring it and you're looking at what the bandwidth is, if it's a capital B, it's megabytes. If it's a small b, it's megabits. And you'll see the chart. It compares them. It's just 8 times or divided by 8. Depends on which way you're going. You have a 20 megabyte or 20 meg or megabits connection speed. Here's the conversion. 1 bit equals 0.125 or 1/8 of a byte. Thus, a 20 meg connection in reality is only 2.38 megabytes per second. Internet speed, the number they give you, 5 megabits per second, for example, Mbps, has nothing to do with how fast your internet works. It's not like your car or motorcycle where you can measure how fast it goes in miles per hour or mph. Instead, internet speed is your allocated bandwidth. Bandwidth is the amount of data that can be sent to you, usually measured in seconds. For example, 5 megabits per second would mean that you can receive up to 5 megabits of data per second. The best way to explain and understand how bandwidth and your internet speed works is by using an analogy. We're going to use a couple of them. The first one is, think of the bandwidth like a freeway. All the cars or the data travel at the same speed. So to get more data from the internet to your computer faster, the freeway needs to be wider. Have you ever been on a freeway where one of the lanes is closed or a couple of the lanes are closed and everybody is end to end? You can't go as fast. But when everybody is side by side, all the lanes are open. Once you get past the point where the accident was or where somebody's pulled over, everybody, all of a sudden, there's no bottleneck anymore. Everybody's going up to the speed limit or more. In other words, say 1 megabit per second is the equivalent of 1 lane of freeway. And let's say that you were trying to download an image which is 5 megabytes in size. So if you had a bandwidth of 1 megabit per second, 1 lane freeway, it would take you roughly 5 seconds to download the image. Now let's say you have 5 megabits bandwidth connection or a 5 lane freeway. How fast will you receive your image? in about a second. More bandwidth means that you'll receive more data at the same time. In this example, you can download 5 images with the wider bandwidth in the same time. You could download 1 with the narrower bandwidth. Here's another picture of that same analogy. Bandwidth is like the number of lanes. The network devices are on-ramps, traffic signals, signs, and maps. And packets are like vehicles. In other words, how they're the container in which they're moving. What's important to note here, and this confuses a lot of people, is that your internet isn't any faster from 1 megabit to 5 megabits, or how much your bandwidth connection has. Your data is just transferred to you at a faster rate because more data can be sent at the same time. It's more efficient, making your internet perceptually faster, but not technically faster. Another confusing thing about shopping for internet is when you see speeds listed like this, 5/1 megabits per second. What does this mean? Well, that means the internet plan has a download speed of 5 megabits per second and an upload speed of 1 megabit per second. The reason why your upload and download speed are different is because most internet connections are asymmetric. In English, this means that the bandwidth is a different size going one way compared to the other. Since most users consume content rather than upload it, the bandwidth for download speeds is larger than the upload. And what does affect your internet speed? The connection type. Are you DSL? Are you using an old modem? Are you using cable modem? Are you using fiber optics? Something else that may affect it is your traffic congestion. Is your neighborhood using a lot of bandwidth? Is your house using a lot of bandwidth? Do you have more than one person on the computer in different rooms downloading or uploading data at the same time? What about the wiring? Do you have bad or old wires or connections or equipment, either in your neighborhood, in other words, in your yard, going from the pole to your house or from wherever the internet is coming through? Is that old? So you may not even know. You may have rewired your house. It may be a new house, but the connections nearby may be old. And then, of course, distance. If you're farther away from the switching center that's sending the signal than someone else, your bandwidth may be less. Also, just consider this. If you're in a household and you've got 3 computers being operated in different rooms at the same time, you only have so much bandwidth, so much pipe coming into your house. If you've got 3 people using the internet at the same time, doing similar things, each one is getting about 1/3 of that bandwidth. So if you're paying for 300, the bandwidth of 300 megabits per second, each computer is going to get about 1/3 of that, or about 100. So as you do the speed test for that computer, and the other 2 computers are also working at the same time, your speed's going to be considerably lower than if no one is on either of the other 2 computers or not even on. See how to test your internet speed for help on how to accurately determine how much bandwidth you have available to you. Internet speed test sites are often, but not always, the best way to do that. How much bandwidth you need depends upon what you plan on doing with your internet connection. For the most part, more is better, constrained, of course, by your budget. In general, if you plan on doing nothing but Facebook and an occasional video, watching a low and high speed plan is probably just fine. Depending upon what you're using the internet for, you might be able to get an official bandwidth recommendation so that you know exactly what you'll need to use that service optimally. For example, if your internet runs smoothly right now, but you plan to add a movie streaming service to the mix, do some research on their website for the minimum bandwidth they recommend for interruption-free streaming. If you have a few TV sets that will be streaming, say, Netflix, and more than a few computers, tablets, and other devices that might be doing who knows what, I'd go with as much as you could afford. You won't be sorry if you get extra speed. Again, here's another analogy, is the size of the pipe that the water flows through, or the data flows through. If you have a bigger pipe, you can get more water through there. It's not going any faster, it's just you're getting more of it at a time. So in other words, as the bandwidth increases, so does the amount of data that can flow through a given amount of time. Just like the diameter of the pipe increases, so does the amount of water that can flow through during a period of time. And so, say you're streaming a movie, someone else is playing an online multiplayer video game, a couple of others are on your same network, are downloading files or using their phones to watch online videos. It's likely that everyone will feel that things are a bit sluggish, if not constantly starting and stopping. This has to do with bandwidth. To return to the plumbing analogy, assuming that the water pipe to a home, the bandwidth remains the same size as the home's faucets and showers are turned on, data downloads to the devices, the water pressure at each point, the perceived speed at each device, will reduce, again, because there's only so much water, bandwidth, available to the home, your network. And again, here's another illustration. If you've got a little garden hose and you put your finger in front of it, you've got low bandwidth, you've only got so much water going through it. You got a huge hose and it's wide open, you're going to get a lot of water through there. And here's some more on the pipe analogy with different sizes and so on. Put it another way, bandwidth is a fixed amount based on what you pay for. While one person may be able to stream a high-def video without any lag whatsoever, the moment you begin adding other download requests to the network, each one will get just their portion of the full capacity. The test will give you a specific result of how fast your internet really is operating, measured in megabits per second, or Mbps. Knowing how fast your internet is will give you a good idea of what you can do with it. So here's a chart. If you're just doing some web surfing, email, and no video streaming, you can do probably 2 to 4 megabits per second. As you add more and more things, and you get down to the several high bandwidth apps, high quality video conferencing, you're going to need 20 megabits per second or higher. The actual bandwidth needs may be higher depending upon the number of users and whether you're using shared or dedicated internet access. Now, as far as your internet service provider, who you get internet from, these are just a sample of some of the ones out there. I use Frontier. HughesNet is another, CenturyLink, Windstream, Spectrum, AT&T, Comcast, who are watching this all over the country and Canada. There are different providers that or serve internet and our internet service providers. Here are some places to test your internet speed. The one I use a lot is the one you go to Google and just type in speed test. And when you do, you'll see a little blue box. It says run speed test. When you run it, you'll get your download and your upload speed. I pay for 150 down and 150 up. I'm getting pretty close to that. So I'm probably getting my money's worth. If I do the test again, the download might be a little bit slower. The upload might be a little bit faster. They vary. Depends on what's going on the lines, and the speed can only be as fast as who you're connected to. So if I'm testing to a slower site, the speed itself is going to be slower. Here's another example. This is on a non-Fios or fiber optic, and so the download is always much faster than the upload, and that's because generally you don't require a lot of upload, because all you're doing is sending a request for a page, and then that page coming down is what you need the greatest speed. So to preserve bandwidth, the service providers give you a faster download than they do upload. This is on my service using another testing site called Ookla, and you can see I am getting what I'm paying for. And the ping or milliseconds, the latency is very low on that one. Now here's an example from an iPad using the LTE, and I'm getting 20 in both directions, but I'm on a slower connection. I'm also using an iPad that only does 2.4 speed. It does not have the 5G. It is 2.4G. Here's another example from another device. It was 10 downloads, 7 upload. So it will depend where you are, what you're using, what equipment you're using, and what the connection is at the site that you're testing it. And here's one that, wow, a 85 millisecond ping and only 15 download and a 1.7 upload. So this isn't one that you would want to stream with. Okay, thanks. If you have any questions, if we have some time, we'll answer them. If not, you can find me at the address that's listed there, either the website or email. And thank you.
Thank you, Hewie. We have 2 questions that we can maybe answer now. The first question is, what is the significance of ping and latency?
You know what? I was wondering the same thing, and I didn't get to research that. So I don't have an answer to that. Maybe somebody else does.
Well, when you ping something, you are sending it to the other server. You're sending a signal. So when you ping the server and you're testing the speed, you're sending a signal to the other server, and you're measuring what that time is that the ping is, right? That's what I gathered.
That's my understanding, yeah.
And it's measured in milliseconds.
That's right. And latency is the time between, it's a little bit different. It's the time between when an action occurs and the for example, latency would be if you, if a satellite system would have latency because it takes a while for the signal to get up to the satellite and back down. So I've seen this on satellite systems we had actually in Mesa, where you click on the button and it doesn't quite work. Like there's that little delay, and that's the time it takes to get up to the satellite and back, and that's the latency of it. Bob, do you have any do you have anything to say about that? You're okay with that? The other question that we have is someone wanted to know how you know if your neighbors are using your internet. Your neighbors.
I use a piece of equipment called a Fing box, and I know Bob has talked about a piece of equipment that the AVG has, or Avast has, that works somewhat similar, and it shows everything that's being used on your account, and it's a good way to find out. What's scary is how many items you actually have in your home that are using Wi-Fi. And in fact, I just bought a new power strip that each of the plugs, there's 4 plugs, and each of the plugs are a separate device for the internet. So I can turn each plug on my power strip on and off using the Amazon device that I don't want to say her name because it'll set off some of your pieces of equipment, but I can turn them off and on individually, as well as there's some USB ports there that I can also turn off and on in mass. There's 4 of them. And so it's but it's another set of devices. So I've got lamps, I've got the TV, I've got other things besides the Amazon product, all using internet services, and that's all using bandwidth. So you've got to be careful. A lot of this Internet of Things or IoT stuff is really starting to eat up your bandwidth.
What I'm
Yes.
using is a product from Avast called Omni, and it's a combination of hardware and software. And the hardware part of that lets me know everything that goes through my router. So I always know what is connected. There's no way that a neighbor can get into my system and actually use my bandwidth, because he would immediately be blocked, because I assign everything that gets used. Anytime I add something new that uses the internet, I have to okay it. Once okayed, then it's fine to be used, but you couldn't have something strange all of a sudden come in, because it would wind up getting blocked.
Yeah, and the Thing box does a very similar thing as well. So I get a report on a weekly basis. I could do it more often if I needed to, but every time something new joins my network, I get a notification from the device that something else joined. So when I put my new computer on the network right away, I got a notice. If one of our relatives comes by and we give them access to to our Wi-Fi, I see information that device was added to our Wi-Fi service or our bandwidth.
Bob, the device that you were talking about, you when you talked about that, I think in February, it had just come on the market. Is it available now for everyone? Is it a where do you get it, and how much does it cost?
It is still only available in the US.
Mm-hmm. And
And
the order
you'd have to go through the Avast go to avast.com, and the product is called Omni.
Omni. Okay.
Right.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, we have a few more questions. I want to say something today, so I have a few things. I'm gonna share my screen, and I want to talk about a few things, and then we can come back to the questions. Greg, as I mentioned earlier, can you imagine that? The poor guy. I mean, he's all ready to do his presentation. He's ready to go, and his computer has a power failure. It's fried. There's nothing. It won't even boot. There's nothing going on with his computer. Can you imagine?
That's a new computer too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not that old. So total failure. So anyway, that's technology, right? I mean, what the heck? At least we're still recording, so that's good. All right, let me just let me just go on my I'm going to share my screen, and we will talk a little bit about a couple of things. Great. Can everyone, Hewie, can you see my screen? It says how to share Google Calendar. Have you got that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go over our Tech for Seniors videos, our YouTube video, and I want to show you some of the changes that we're making and how you can look and find things within the video. Now, if you look at this is the clip that I played. So what happens is Hewie and I, or Bob, may play a clip, a video, YouTube video in the show. All right, and that's okay when we're in when we're playing when we're in our Zoom meeting. It's our meeting. It's a private meeting. We can do whatever we want in that meeting. All right, but we tape the meeting and I republish it on YouTube as a YouTube video, right? And there are about 80 people that watch it each week and say, gee, Ron, it's important. We can't make it Monday morning, but we really like the show. So not only do we have 80 people on today, but we also have another 80 people that watch the show. So that's important. The problem is if I record the YouTube video and replay it back through YouTube, that's against the terms of service of YouTube. So we haven't got caught. We've done it a few times in the last 17 episodes, and I haven't had any problems yet. Although music, and I will caution Ray about this, music is a big one that they catch you on. And I don't know if you remember in episode 3 or episode 4. I did a promotion. I said, look, Phantom of the Opera was on. Remember that when they were streaming that on the Fridays, and I played just a tiny little clip of the Phantom music, and I got sanctioned when the bots, because when you publish your YouTube videos, when you publish them, they scan them, and there's bots and that are programs that scan it and look for this stuff. And I got sanctioned. Now, it wasn't a bad sanction because I'm not commercially making this, but I couldn't publish it. If I was monetizing the channel, I couldn't have monetized that particular one. So you have to be very careful about this. Now, so if you come along, if you look back at Hewie, before Hewie was sort of in our show, Hewie went along and said, okay, and now here's this video. And the video was how to share Google Calendar with other people. So in this situation, if you are watching this YouTube video now, which I put out, there's nothing there. You won't see the video. However, I say, please go up and click the card. If you look up to the right side of the screen and you see this little eye here with a circle, these are called cards. And in a video, in a YouTube video, when you're producing it, I can put 5 cards in the video, and I can choose how long the tracks of these cards go in. So watch what happens, but it's a little tiny eye up here. So you just bring your mouse, your cursor up here, click on this, and there's the video. Okay, so when we say, if we're gonna play a video, I want you to look up here and you'll see a little eye, and you click on this and it'll take you right to the YouTube. It'll take you right to the video that you want to watch. So that's how you do it. So again, in the past, you've just been watching. If you go back here, if we take you back, you'll see Hewie talking.
Gmail accounts, but I'm not going to be able to do that with this because it makes everything public, and I really don't want to do that. But I wanted to put together, for today, I was going to put together some kind of a tutorial on how to create a Google Calendar. And so I started looking to see what was out there. I found one that I couldn't, in the least bit, do as well, as concise as one I found that I'm going to share with you. So here's a video about how to share your Google Calendar with other people by somebody else.
And there it is. And what you'll do then is, you'll come up and click this little eye here, and that will start the video. And that is legal. That gets around the terms of service of YouTube. And so that's what we'll be doing. Because in the future, Hewie's presentation today, he spent a lot of hours making it. These are not easy things to do. Hewie, you put a lot of time in. Thank you very much for doing that. It is very, very, very time consuming, and sometimes we just don't have that time in the week to make up fresh stuff. And so we often find people who've done excellent jobs of creating concepts that we want to display to you, and so we'll play a video. And this is the way in which we can get the video back out to you. And by clicking this little eye up, these are called cards. I want you to look at that. Now, the other thing I wanted you to look at is to come down here. And if you look at the timeline here, you'll see that there's little bumps all along the timeline. So I want you to come down, and you'll see a description of the video here. And you click Show More. You see this little Show More here. And now you come down here, and you'll see what we call a time chapter. And so what I've done here is I've created a time. What this is if you look down the list here, maybe all as you want, we know everybody just wants to watch the show for Bob's security stuff, right? So you come down here and you want to watch Bob's security stuff. So all as you have to do is come down, and you'll see 735. Click on the 735, and it will take you right to Bob's security talk. Okay, and then you can come back down again, and if you want to watch the Google Calendar with Hewie, you click on the time, and that will take you right to the Google Calendar. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you about this is we had some people who, if you go right back to the very beginning, we had some comments from people that there are a lot of people that scan these and sometimes want to watch part of it, but the problem is that they didn't know what was in the videos. So you'll find at the very beginning of the video, the very beginning, before the music starts and the intro comes on, what we've done is we've put a list of what the video contains. So if you want to go back and you want to look at the different videos and you want to find out what each, maybe you'll say, gee, there was something 4 or 5 videos ago that I want to watch again. We now have an index at the very, very beginning. So you'll see here, this is the index, what was in episode 17. So if I start playing, this will be on the screen for a very short period of time. And then we start into the intro and then into the show. So again, if you want to then move on down and you want to look at any particular part of the show, you can just come down the timeline. And if there is a video within the show, then you just watch for that little eye, because Hewie and I are going to be using that a lot. These are called cards, and we can insert 5 into each show. So, for example, today what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, gee whiz, you want to watch Hewie's Zoom 101 course on Thursday, and to register, and I'm going to point out just register here. And so if you click that little eye, that will take you right to the registration site. So you can use those little things as we go through the video. But it's a little tiny thing that that it's just a tiny little thing that you can use. If you monetize your channel and you get here, I'm just going to unshare so we can see each other. If you monetize your channel, then you can put big banners in and you can do a whole bunch more. But we're not there. This is all just free stuff we're doing just for the fun of it. So it's not. But you will see some YouTube videos that has very slick banners that come down and stuff like that. But that's because they have advertising and stuff like that. So I wanted just to let everybody know so that you are aware to click that little button at the top, because we're going to use that more often now. Okay, what is it? 9:45. I think what we're going to do, we know something, we never have time for questions. So this is going to be great. We've got 15 minutes to have a chat, and so there were a few other questions here. Let me see. All right. What if we have a weak signal from a cell phone tower and using a Verizon hotspot? How do we improve bandwidth? Do you want to tackle that one, Hewie?
Let's see. I'm unmuted. Good. Well, the best thing to do is to try different services and check with your neighbors and see who's using what. But in a lot of cases, I know there are several of you on here, you don't have a lot of choices where you can go or what you can do, and you have to live with what you've got and just hope that some of these new services are going to get bandwidth into your area. And I see Edith.
Oh, that's Chris. Chris is an expert on this. I'm sure he's going to have something to say. All right, let's Chris.
This is Gordy. That was my question. I was wondering if a signal booster would be a solution.
I'll answer that in a minute. See what Chris has to say. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, for the past 4 or 5 years, we've been using a Wilson WeBoost amplifier, which amplifies all the bands, which means it's good for all the frequencies, which means it's good for Verizon, T-Mobile, etc. It makes a big difference in our signal strength and actually the speed of things coming in. It requires 2 antennas and an input antenna. We have the mobile unit, which has a small antenna on it, and it's a magnet, and it goes out on a cable about 15, 18 feet away from the amplifier itself. They recommend that you have the antenna as far away as you can from the distribution antenna. The distribution antenna is on the inside, but on the mobile unit, the distribution is only about 18 inches because from the antenna to the phone or whatever you're going to want to be amplifying, because the FCC has put regulations on those, and we've tried other antennas and they don't work. So what you have to do is you have to get them 18 feet apart. You have to put your cell phone, if that's how you're getting your data signal, and that's how we do it, literally on top of the antenna, and then you distribute and everything's fine. That unit costs in the $400 range. They make one for home use, which means it plugs into 120, not 12 volts. And the home use one is another $150 more, but they do exist and they do work. I'm done.
All right, was that you said the Wilson model?
Well, Wilson and WeBoost are the same company. They changed their name from Wilson to WeBoost. We've got an older one, but if you go on there, you'll find amplifiers. They're called a cell phone signal amplifier or something like that. And they do exist and they work just fine for us.
How much does it increase your speed? Do you know?
Well, I don't know about speed, but we use an app called Network Cell Info Lite. I'll say it again, Network Cell Info Lite on both our computers, Chromebooks, and phones. And I was, in terms of a percentage, it goes from, there's a meter on it that goes from yellow, which is where it sits most of the time if we're in bad areas, which is pretty bad signal. And it probably increases it by 30% better. That's the only way I can tell you because I don't have numbers.
Gordy, Gordy, so
it goes from like the download speed would go from about 8 or 10 to 22 to 30.
Wow, that's a big increase.
So Gordy, I'm a member of the Mobile Internet Association. I've been trying to get Chris to join for years, and he, Chris and Cherie are often they run the Mobile Internet Association, and they do all the technical testing on all these boosters. There's a lot of these boosters that are available. If you fire me an email, I'll send you the link, and you can look at the testing. But the WeBoost is one of the models, but there's a whole bunch of these models out there, and there's very sophisticated testing on all these, depending on which bandwidths you want to use and all that sort of stuff. So that information is available, and Chris is using one of them.
All right, great.
So just fire me an email.
I'll send you an email.
Yes, fire me an email on that, okay?
Appreciate it.
There was one more question in the chat room that came up. Now this is interesting. So maybe someone could comment on this. This person said they get more lag with Sling than they do with Netflix. So are not all streaming services the same?
No, as a matter of fact, we subscribe to YouTube TV, which is a streaming service, and I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of it's out of sync. You know, somebody's talking and a couple of seconds later their mouth moves. And it doesn't happen on the other services, and I haven't figured out a way to stop it from doing that, except maybe switching to a different service.
Mary is asking, do you have a link to the PowerPoint slides used in the video? No, because what we do is we take the slides and we make the videos with them. And Hewie, did you do the presentation day in PowerPoint first and transpose?
Yes, and I do have it if she sends me an email. I'll be glad to make a PDF out of the slides and send her a copy.
But don't forget, Mary, that this is all on as a video. It will be up tomorrow as a video, and you can rewatch it over and over and over again. It'll be up as a video. How do you stop feedback in audio of Zoom meetings? Hewie, got a question about that?
Well, feedback's usually because there's either two microphones on or two speakers, and what's happening is the sound is going from one speaker into a microphone, and then it's going back and forth. So what you have to do is turn something off or separate them or wear a headset. And that's the best way because my microphone is right here. The speakers are here, and so there's no noise in the room, and it's not feeding. Now, if you have two devices, you got two people watching the same program, or they're on the same Zoom meeting, and both of them have speakers and microphones. You are going to get either echoing or you're going to get feedback because it's going back and forth between the microphones and so on. So you've got to be careful what's emanating sound, and if it's you're talking, and if it's going to a speaker and that speaker is going back to the microphone, you're going to get feedback.
This is Dewey. Could I make a comment to Hewie regarding YouTube TV?
Sure.
Is that okay? I'm a longtime user of YouTube TV, and I have not had any instance of what you described. So it must be something else. That's about all I can say. Okay.
Thank you. Yep, I will do some other further checking.
With Windows 10, you can open your volume mixer and reduce the input from Zoom to eliminate the feedback as well. I do it. I always have that open when I start Zoom, and I can just quickly slide it down so there's no feedback.
If I may comment on that, when I started the Zoom, or when the Zoom meeting started today, my volume was terribly loud. So I quickly went to Control Panel, and I set under properties, I set the level of the incoming audio down to 50%, and that made it perfect.
Yeah, if also you go to the microphone on your Zoom screen and do the up arrow, you will see audio settings as one of the choices, and you can go in, you can make a lot of changes there, especially if somebody's complaining they can't hear you, your microphone isn't loud enough. You can, from that place, turn up your microphone so they'll make it louder so they can hear you better. So you don't have to go into Windows to make those changes. You can do it from within Zoom.
Thank you for that. I just did it, and it's at 50%.
Dewey, have you noticed any difference between Sling and have you ever looked at Sling and the lag between, maybe the difference between Sling and Netflix? Have you noticed any difference? I know you've watched a lot of these different services. I know that Netflix adjusts their bandwidth, the amount of data based on your connection. Netflix does a very good job of adjusting the signal to go to even broadcast on very slow connections. So they do a very good job of that. What's your experience? Have you used any of these other ones, Dewey?
Dewey, you're muted.
Dewey, you're muted.
You'd have to talk to Hewie about that. I have no experience with Netflix and Sling.
It's been a while since I've used Netflix. 40,000 movies or whatever it is, and Robin can't find it. Enough of them for us to make use of it. And I also have the Amazon Prime, so we get the movies from it, and then there's free movies on a lot of the other services. So we don't really, we're not using Netflix, but almost all of them work well. And I've tried different, I was on Sling TV and we switched to YouTube TV. The reason I did that is the YouTube TV, number one, had a few different channels that we wanted, but the big thing was that they have a DVR that's unlimited. You can DVR everything, and there's no limit to it. Some of them have a limit of so many hours of DVR or so many months, and that's it.
Chris has a, yes, Chris.
You get me unmuted here. I have a question. A while back, I asked about how to record a Zoom meeting and as a participant. And I use a Chromebook mostly. And a couple of those apps, I guess, were suggested. And I tried them, and they record for 5 minutes, and then they want $15 a month. I'd like a few more suggestions on, I think it came from Hewie, on what kinds of programs or apps, preferably apps, because I'd like to use a Chromebook, that I can use to record the meeting as a participant, not as a host.
Well, we actually were involved with a lot of that this week because, of course, but you can only. So let me talk a little bit about that. If you are a host or a co-host, then you can record the meeting either on your local computer or you can record it in the cloud. Also, you have to have a paid subscription to do that. All right. So, and what was clear this week was recording I did a presentation this week and I recorded it locally on the computer. Most often I record in the cloud and I have the recording set for recording in the cloud. I didn't think it made any difference, but it makes a huge amount of difference. And you always want to record in the cloud if you can and have it, because how it records is totally different if you're doing a local recording and putting it on your own computer. And it happens, and how it records and the data that it records is really quite a bit different. If you record in the cloud, you can get multiple tracks, you can get all sorts of information that's different. In other words, the problem I had this week was I did a presentation to a club and I recorded it locally on my computer. And on the right hand screen, I had all the participants up. Well, those participants were sitting right on the front of my screen and they were recorded over top of the whole presentation. And that's because it was local. If you're doing a cloud recording, it gives you all those options, and so that doesn't happen. Now, you can, so there's, Hewie, how many people can record? Like, can you?
Well, I thought you could assign, anyone could record, but and maybe you can, but right now I'm a co-host, and when I went to start recording, I noticed it says it's already recording, so it's your account is controlling that, and so I couldn't even record. And I think that was what his question was: if he wanted a recording and record, could he? And there are some programs you can get to do that. The one I use is from a company called Applyan, Applian, but there's a cost to it. They don't charge you by the hour or minute. It's you have to buy the program, and then you record on your own computer.
But any screen recording program, such as Screencast-O-Matic, I think, which Bob uses, would do it, eh? So any screen recording would work. Right, Bob? You use
but it uses additional bandwidth, and it's going to use your computer power. So if you're on a little tablet, you may not be able to, because you may not have the oomph and of the whatever you're using to do both the recording and also to watch the thing on Zoom, and you won't have the oomph to do that.
Yeah.
This is Mike Ungerman. I also have a note on my screen that you're recording live on YouTube. So you're also going to have an archive on YouTube as well as whatever's being recorded.
That's exactly right. That's why I'm doing it. And it's recording it privately, so it's not broadcasting out. But that's exactly right. I want to record it. I want another copy. I want lots of copies. I don't want to go through another week of having to do this again. So I don't know. It was a bad week. So anyway, hey, listen, you guys. It is 10 o'clock. Another meeting has gone by. I think we've had a good time today. Thank you all for coming. Wherever Greg is, he's probably listening. I hope you have a great day, Greg. Get a new computer. Hewie, thanks so much.
It was fun. It was another week. We've done these, 18 times now?
18 times. You going to be back next week?
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Although I do have a doctor's appointment early, so hopefully he's not going to keep me in the waiting room too long and I can get home and get online. But if you miss me next week, that's the reason why the doctor was running late.
So Bob, I might want to talk to you. Maybe it's the Bob and Ron. We might have to tap dance a little next week.
That's fine, whatever it takes.
We can do that. So whatever we're going to do, song and dance or something, we'll keep everyone entertained for the hour. You know, there was in the chat box there was comments. People wanted to know about home networks and routers and 2.5 and 5 megahertz. Well, it just so happens. Where's John Hamlin? Was John still here? I finally got my presentation, Medical Devices Part 2, completed. And it's actually now a presentation. And in there, I talk about home networks and automation and devices. And I'm going to do a clip out of that next week, take a 15, 20-minute segment out of that, and we'll talk about home networks. So that should be fun. And hopefully Dewey will show up and Bob will be there, and we'll be here next week. Thanks everyone for coming. And watch for this again. Remember, it's on YouTube tomorrow morning. It'll be there. Well, it'll be there this afternoon, but it'll be on tomorrow morning for sure. All right.